In a rail yard on the south side of Cleveland, a young black man stood in front of a rusted Norfolk Southern caboose. The wheels were locked solid with rust. The red paint had faded to a chalky pink. Two of the four windows were boarded up with plywood that had warped from years of Ohio winters. A pigeon flew out of the chimney stack when he tapped the side of it with his knuckle. The rail yard manager wanted $300 for it. The caboose had been sitting on a forgotten siding for almost 6 years, scheduled to be scrapped for steel at the end of the season. Nobody had even walked over to look at it. Most people didn't know it was for sale. It wasn't really for sale. The manager was just trying to clear the lot. The young man pulled a folded envelope out of the inside pocket of his coat. He counted the bills on the hood of the manager's pickup truck. 20s, 10s, a stack of singles held together with a rubber band. $312. Everything he had in the world. The manager watched him count it twice. Then he took $300, handed the rest back, and told him the caboose was his. He shook his hand and asked if he had a way to move it. The young man said he was not going to move it. He was going to live in it. His name is Marcus Bell. He was 21 years old. What he did with that caboose over the next 16 months did not just turn his life around. It turned around the lives of 7 other families who had nowhere else to go. But to understand why this story matters, you have to understand where Marcus was standing before he stood in that rail yard. For 2.5 years, Marcus had been sleeping in the stairwell of an abandoned parking garage on East 30th Street. He had a blue duffel bag with 3 changes of clothes inside. He had a wool blanket his grandmother had crocheted for him when he was 8. He kept a small spiral notebook that he wrote in every night before he fell asleep, and he had a high school diploma rolled up in a cardboard tube and sealed at both ends with electrical tape so the rain could not ruin it. He had not always been homeless. He had grown up in a small house on Cleveland's east side with his grandmother, who raised him after his mother died from an overdose when he was 4. His father had never been part of the picture. His grandmother worked nights cleaning offices downtown. She made him do his homework at the kitchen table every evening before she left for her shift. She told him every single morning that he was going to college. Marcus graduated from high school with a 3.6 GPA. He had been accepted to Cleveland State. He had applied for financial aid. He was 3 weeks away from starting his freshman year when his grandmother had a stroke in her kitchen and died on the way to the hospital. The house they had been renting belonged to a landlord who showed up 2 weeks after the funeral. He told Marcus he had 30 days. The lease had been in his grandmother's name. Marcus was 19 years old and had nowhere to go. He had no other family. His grandmother had been the entire world. He tried to make it work for a while. He moved into a friend's basement. The friend's mother got laid off 4 months later and asked Marcus to leave. He slept on couches. He slept in his car until the car got repossessed. He slept at a homeless shelter on Lakeside Avenue until someone stole his diploma out of his bag during the night. He found it 3 days later in a trash can on the street. After that, he stopped trusting shelters. He chose the parking garage stairwell because it was dry. It was warm enough in the winter if he slept on the landing between floors and nobody bothered him. He worked dishwashing jobs and stocking shifts at a grocery store on Carnegie Avenue. He saved every dollar he could in a coffee can he kept hidden behind a loose brick in the stairwell wall. He never told anyone he was saving for something. He wasn't sure himself in the beginning what he was saving for. He just knew that if he stopped saving, he would stop having a reason to keep going. That coffee can is what he counted out on the hood of the manager's pickup truck. The first night, Marcus slept on the caboose. He didn't have heat. He didn't have water. He didn't have light. He laid his grandmother's blanket on the floor between the iron stove and the conductor's bench. He stared up at the wooden ceiling and listened to the wind moving through the broken windows. A train seemed on a working line 200 yards away, and the whole caboose shook for 30 seconds straight. He smiled in the dark. That night, he made a decision. He was not going to be a young man who slept on the floor of a rusted train car. He was going to turn this rusted train car into a home. And if he had room left over, he was going to fill that room with other people who needed somewhere to go. He had no experience working on trains. He had no money for materials. He had no plan. What he had was a high school shop class teacher named Mr. Whitfield, who had taught him how to use power tools when he was 16, a library card, and a rail yard manager who let him park the caboose on the back lot for free as long as he kept it clean. The next morning, Marcus started ripping out the old interior. The first month was demolition and discovery. He pulled out the rotted wooden bench seats and stacked them outside. He scraped the rust off the iron floor down to bare metal. He pulled 4 pounds of pigeon feathers out of the chimney stack. He found a Norfolk Southern conductor's logbook from 1987 wedged behind a panel in the wall, with handwritten entries about every stop the caboose had made on its final run. He kept the logbook on a shelf where he could see it. He patched the broken windows with clear plastic sheeting and duct tape. He swept and mopped the inside of the caboose with bleach water until it stopped smelling like an abandoned building. He scrubbed the cast iron stove that sat in the center of the car until the rust came off in flakes and the original black surface showed underneath. The second month was wood. Marcus walked Cleveland looking for demolition sites. He found 3. He offered to help clear debris in exchange for any wood he could carry. A foreman at a job site in Slavic Village let him take oak floorboards from a house being torn down on East 65th Street. A demolition crew in Tremont gave him pine paneling from an old church that had been condemned. He carried the wood back to the rail yard on foot, sometimes making 4 trips a day, walking 8 miles each way. He pulled the nails out one by one. He sanded each board by hand because he did not have a power sander. His fingers cracked and bled for weeks. He laid down a real wood floor inside the caboose, plank by plank, fitting each one against the next. When he finished, he sat on the floor and ran his palm across it. He did not cry. He just sat there for a long time without moving. The third month was insulation and walls. Marcus learned that a Cleveland warehouse was throwing out rolls of fiberglass insulation that had been damaged in a flood. He cleaned the warehouse for a week in exchange for everything they wanted to get rid of. He insulated the entire caboose, floor to ceiling, packing the fiberglass behind wooden frames he built against the iron walls. He covered everything with the pine paneling from the demolished church. The pine still smelled faintly like incense for the first few weeks. By month 4, the caboose stayed warm without a blanket. Marcus slept through the night for the first time since his grandmother had died. He started writing in his spiral notebook again. He had stopped writing in it for almost 2 years. Then came the breakthrough. Marcus needed water. He had been carrying jugs from a gas station on Broadway Avenue, sometimes 2 trips a day. He knew that a real home needed real running water, and he knew that whatever system he built had to work for more than just him. Because the plan was never just for him, he found his answer at a salvage yard outside the city, a 200-gallon stainless steel tank from a decommissioned dairy truck. The yard owner sold it to him for $40 and let him pay in 3 installments. Marcus built a platform on the roof of the caboose using welded angle iron he salvaged from a metal scrap pile. He installed the tank, ran gutters along the entire length of the roof, and connected the system with PVC pipe. For filtration, he built a 4-stage system based on instructions he found in a homesteading book at the Cleveland Public Library: sand, charcoal, gravel, and a fine cloth filter at the bottom. He boiled the water on his cast iron stove for drinking. He used the cold tank water for washing and dishes. He rigged a propane tankless water heater he found at a yard sale for $25 to give him a real hot shower. The day Marcus took his first hot shower on his own caboose, he stood under the water for almost an hour. He was 21 years old, and he had not had a hot shower without waiting in line at a shelter for over 2 years. He said later that he forgot what privacy felt like. He forgot what it meant to have hot water hit his back and not have to be ready to leave when somebody knocked on the door. That was the moment, Marcus says, when he knew the rest of the plan was going to work. Power came next. Marcus traded labor for solar panels with a small renewable energy installer in Lakewood. He worked on their crews on weekends, helping install systems on customer homes. The owner, a woman named Karen, watched him work for 3 weekends before she pulled him aside and asked him where he was from. He told her. She did not say anything for a moment. Then she told him to come back next Saturday, and she would have a system ready for him at cost. She gave him 4 panels, a charge controller, and 2 used deep cycle batteries that still had about 70% of their capacity left. She charged him $80 total and told him to pay her back whenever he could. Then the community started showing up. A retired railroad worker named Mr. Lewis lived 3 blocks from the rail yard. He was 68 years old and had worked on the Norfolk Southern line for 41 years before he retired. He had heard about the young man fixing up an old caboose from a friend who worked at the yard. One Saturday, he walked over with a metal toolbox and a thermos of coffee. He asked Marcus if he needed help with the brake system and the underbelly mechanics. Mr. Lewis spent the next 2 months coming over every Saturday morning. He showed Marcus how to drain the old brake fluid, how to seal the iron floor against water damage, and how to reinforce the wooden frame so it could carry more weight. He brought his own tools, and he never accepted a dollar. He told Marcus that his son had passed away from cancer 5 years before, and working on the caboose was the most useful he had felt since. He became a mentor. Volunteers arrived in different ways. A woman who ran a quilting group at a Methodist church on the west side brought him hand-stitched blankets. A retired electrician wired the caboose for him for free across 3 weekends. A high school art teacher and her students painted a mural on the exterior, a long curving design of the Cuyahoga River flowing into Lake Erie. Someone left a small chest freezer running off a power inverter at the rail yard gate one morning with a note that said, "For you and whoever you help next." By the 9th month, Marcus had a real kitchen with 2 propane burners, a deep ceramic sink, and open shelving lined with mismatched dishes from estate sales. He had a real bed in the back of the caboose. He had a small wood-burning fireplace insert that he had built into the original iron stove. He had a desk by the window where he wrote in his notebook every night. And he had a second caboose, because here is the part that almost nobody talks about. While Marcus was finishing his own caboose, he had been quietly negotiating with the rail yard manager. There were 11 more rusted train cars sitting on that back lot waiting to be scrapped. Cabooses, 2 old passenger cars, a converted boxcar that had been used as a maintenance shed. The manager agreed to sell Marcus 1 car at a time for $200 each, as long as Marcus kept fixing them up and not letting them sit. By month 11, Marcus had 3 converted train cars on that lot. By month 13, he had 5. By month 16, he had 7. Each car had been retrofitted using the same system: reclaimed wood floors, insulated walls. A rainwater collection system fed into a single large filtration unit Marcus had built in a central pump house. Solar panels were on every roof, all tied to a shared battery bank. A small wood stove warmed each car. Marcus had designed a composting toilet system after reading 3 different books on it. In each car, a family that had nowhere else to go. A single mother named Tasha and her 2 kids moved into the second car. She had been living in her van for 8 months after her landlord raised the rent twice in 1 year. Her oldest son, who was 9, had been doing his homework by the dome light of the van every night. A family of 4 from Akron moved into the third car after a house fire destroyed everything they owned. Their insurance had lapsed 2 weeks before the fire. The father had been a roofer for 15 years. He immediately started helping Marcus with the construction of the next 2 cars. A grandmother raising her 3 grandchildren moved into the 4th car after her daughter went to prison. She had been sleeping in shifts on her sister's living room floor for almost a year. The grandchildren had been splitting one twin mattress. Marcus did not charge any of them rent. He asked only that they help with the upkeep of the lot, contribute to the shared garden he had started building between the cars, and help him work on the next conversion when they could. Every family agreed. Every family showed up. By the 16th month, the back lot of that rail yard had become something nobody had a word for. Not a shelter, not a commune, not a homeless camp. It was a small village of 7 train cars and 23 people, all of whom had been living without homes a year earlier. The local news in Cleveland picked up the story almost by accident. A reporter named David Castillo had been working on a piece about unhoused families in Cuyahoga County. Someone at the food bank on Carnegie Avenue told him about a young man who had built a small village out of train cars on the south side. David drove out on a Friday afternoon, expecting to be there for an hour. He spent 6 hours with Marcus and the 7 families. He met Tasha and her kids. He met the family from Akron. He met Mr. Lewis, who still came by every Saturday morning with his thermos of coffee. He saw the garden. He saw the shared kitchen Marcus had built in the converted boxcar. He saw a 9-year-old boy doing his homework at a real desk under a real lamp. The story aired on a Tuesday evening. By Friday morning, it had been shared more than 3 million times. Donations came in from people in 38 different countries. A construction company in Columbus offered Marcus a full-time foreman position. A nonprofit in Detroit wanted to fly him out to consult on a similar project for displaced families. A documentary filmmaker from Chicago wanted to follow the next conversion from start to finish. Marcus turned down the foreman job. He said he was not done in Cleveland. He used part of the donation money to buy 4 more train cars from the rail yard. He started teaching free Saturday workshops in the converted boxcar, the same way he had been taught by Mr. Whitfield, Mr. Lewis, and Karen at the solar company. He showed people how to read salvage opportunities, how to install rainwater systems, how to wire a basic solar setup, and how to talk to demolition foremen. 2 other unhoused men in Cleveland have started their own conversions on a different rail yard across town. Marcus helps them on weekends. He brings them tools. He introduces them to Mr. Lewis. He shows up. Marcus still lives in the first caboose he bought for $300. He sleeps in the same bed he built. He writes in his spiral notebook every night before he turns out the light. His grandmother's blanket is folded at the foot of the bed. Someone asked him recently if he ever thinks about the young man who used to sleep in the parking garage stairwell, the young man with the blue duffel bag and the rolled-up high school diploma in the cardboard tube. Marcus said he thinks about him every single day. He said that young man was not weaker than him. He said that young man had the same hands, the same mind, and the same heart. The only thing that young man was missing was a chance, a $300 chance. And the strange thing is, Marcus said, once he had his chance, the first thing he wanted to do was give other people theirs. The caboose did not save Marcus. He saved himself. But the caboose, that rusted, forgotten, scheduled to be scrapped Norfolk Southern caboose, gave him somewhere to start. And once he had somewhere to start, he made sure 7 other families had somewhere too. Sometimes a home is not just where you live. Sometimes a home is the first thing you build that lets you build something else. If this story moved you, hit subscribe. We tell stories every week about people who built something out of nothing. The next one might be the one that changes how you start your own beginning.